Welcome to the Tara Palmeri Show, with a collaboration with Mo News. We're now on Substack. Mo finally joined the platform, and we are two New Yorkers who are going to break down what just happened overnight, and not just from, a New York perspective, but in even bigger perspective of what this means for the Democratic Party. Zohran Mamdani, 33-year-old upstart Democratic Socialist, first Muslim nominee, most likely to be mayor of New York. We'll see what happens. A lot of things are happening right now. Group chats are blowing up, and how did we get here? Sometimes I think to myself, did Zohran win because he ran a good campaign, or did Cuomo lose because he ran a shitty campaign? And did he hand it to Zohran? Because Zohran was at 1% when we started this game. I mean,
right, in February, like 4.5 months ago.
Yeah, and Cuomo, it was his to lose in a lot of ways, and he did it. He successfully lost the race. Congratulations, you did it. So this has been something to me. If I was going to compare it to, on a national scale, this feels like the MAGA rebellion when President Trump at the time in 2016 felt the anger of the base Republicans, F the George W. Bush establishment, let's rise up, let's have the rebellion, we'll take over the Republican Party. And the Republican establishment was like, oh my God, what's going on? And he managed to usurp it. Is this what's happening on the left? I mean, is that a fair comparison where the establishment keeps presenting these candidates like Kamala Harris, for example, Andrew Cuomo, and the base voters are saying, enough, we don't want them. We don't want Hillary. We don't want Kamala. We don't want Andrew Cuomo. They're all connected. Andrew Cuomo just got the endorsement of James Clyburn, party poobah in South Carolina 5 days ago. That did very little for him.
He had Bill Clinton, Mike Bloomberg, basically everyone establishment. I find it so interesting, Tara, and I was looking forward to speaking with you about this because you also covered City Hall. You were the New York Post.
Right.
And when you talk about New York City politics, there are, certain individuals, but also certain organizations and industries that, have a vested interest in the future of the city. We're talking finance. We're talking real estate.
Yep.
And it did feel like effectively all of them, not excitedly by any stretch of the imagination, but out of their own interest, were all lined up. All the traditional power brokers, if you were grading this on paper, were all lined up behind Andrew Cuomo. He had the money, he had the names, and ultimately ran a campaign sort of out of fear, not to screw anything up. Interesting anecdote. I mentioned this to the folks over on our Instagram page, that we were talking to the Cuomo campaign through the spring. He's like, oh, we want to come on your podcast, etc. Tara, several conversations all ended with, but can you not focus on why he resigned as governor? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what sort of interview can I do with you guys? And I said, to me, that sort of said everything about that campaign. And you even hear from Eric Adams, who of course is running as independent now, where he's like, Cuomo is running away from his record. Zohran has no record. Come back to Eric. But
who was indicted, but whatever, casual.
Indicted, sort of in cahoots with Trump, like
also living in New Jersey, whatever. There was a lot of carpetbaggers. Cuomo from Westchester. It's interesting. You're right. I mean, Cuomo had a $25 million super PAC behind him, and it didn't help him one bit. And this super PAC was backed by people like Mike Bloomberg, backed by people like Bill Ackman, who's a hedge fund titan, by DoorDash, major industries. And he still couldn't pull it off because of the reason that you just stated. He refused to talk to the press. He didn't knock doors. He thought he was above it. He ran a Rose Garden campaign. And Mamdani...
He's a Cuomo. I mean, for folks who are not familiar, his father was governor. He was a 3-term governor. As far as he's concerned, he should be president. But he's sort of, I don't know what you gleaned from the people around him, but that sort of being mayor was sort of just a reset so he could become president at some point, given the way that he left the governor's mansion in Albany.
Yeah, this was a reset moment, not just to run for president, probably 2028, but also to reset his legacy so that his obituary doesn't read disgraced former governor, had to resign early, killed grandma, and was a sex pest. Which, by the way, I think they completely underestimated that and how much that bothers New Yorkers, particularly women, like, we're not trad wives. You know what I mean? Like, we're not the same type of voters that would give Trump a pass. You know,
right? And I think that's probably what they saw, right? They're like, well, Trump got to go back into the White House. Like, why can't Cuomo get the same pass?
Exactly. I just think that they misunderestimated that. They misunderestimated the fact that I thought he lives in Westchester. Like, people in New York, they care about that. And it's amazing to see how Zohran completely withdrew, he redrew, the map of New York. And this was a decisive win. This wasn't even a squeaker. And a lot of people thought it might be a squeaker and that they might have to get the 8th round of ranked choice voting. But no, it was a 10-point lead.
Zohran, in a matter of 4 months, goes from 1% to a dominant win, to the point where I was even shocked last night when I saw the headline. Not only had Cuomo called him to congratulate him, Cuomo had conceded without even going through the second round. You know, we have ranked choice voting in New York. That he knew that he was cooked last night.
And there's a question right now about whether Cuomo decides to run as an independent, right? Because he already has a ballot line to run as an independent. We know Eric Adams is running as an independent. We've got Curtis Siwa, who is the famous cat man, who is running as a Republican.
What's with the beret, by the way? Why does he wear that red beret?
It's I'm blanking on the name of his organization, but he's the Red Berets. They're there's police safety. It's his thing. He's a character. He's an only a New York character who runs for mayor every single time and always loses. Gotta love him. And then you've got Zohran Mamdani, and he's a Democratic socialist. And if he lost, he would have ran with the Working Families Party. So those are the realities. Now, if Cuomo decides to run and they all are on the ballot, basically, you don't have to win by 50%. And that's why you create ranked choice voting, right? Because you want a candidate who wins by more than 50% of the vote. But in the general election in New York, there is no ranked choice voting. So one of these candidates, if it's a 4-way race, could win by just 30% of the vote. Now, I spoke to a very prominent Democratic real estate lobbyist. These people have a lot of power in New York. And I asked, could Cuomo really effectively run? And he said, no, this stink of loss just envelops him. He just can't possibly do it. But then again, this guy has cojones, as they say. He thought he could run this time.
He's got quite an ego.
Yeah, he thought he could do it again. He thought he could run again. He didn't have to be apologetic. He didn't have to do an apology tour even before he ran. You know, they skipped that whole step. He didn't understand who the voters were. You're dealing with the Democratic base. They were the front leaders of the Me Too movement. You know, he wasn't running for Republicans in flyover states. He just lost the plot. The stink is on him, says TJ Schuster. So this is a really interesting moment. But I do want to talk to you about some of the constituencies that Cuomo had to win over. I have friends who told me, Upper East Side friends, who he did end up winning the Upper East Side, Cuomo.
Yes. And I believe in Manhattan, it was Upper East Side, Upper West Side, and Tribeca.
The wealthiest areas.
The wealthiest zip codes, yes.
Exactly. And, she said to me, I had to hold my nose to vote for Cuomo, but they did it regardless. And I think even if he runs as an independent, I'm sure he's still being encouraged to by the billionaire set. They'll be backing him. But, he also managed to get the Orthodox Jewish community to come out and vote for him. And that was a stretch because they were annoyed with how they felt like they were targeted during COVID and the restrictions that were specifically in their zones. And I'm wondering, Moshe, what are you hearing from your friends in New York, your Jewish friends, about the idea that Zohran Mamdani is about to be the mayor, or very well could be the mayor of New York City, and some of his comments about global intifada and standing behind them and really being a critic of Israel? I mean, how do they feel about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because ultimately, as mayor of New York City, you have very little, if not no control over U.S. foreign policy, right? That is the jurisdiction of the president and Washington. But ultimately, New York City features a population here of just over 1 million Jews, the largest population of Jews in America, and actually the largest population of Jews in one place outside of Israel. And so they're a key constituency here in New York. And I would say that right now the reaction and the questions I'm getting from the community range from just curiosity to abject fear. like literal.
Like he's not going to protect Jews from anti-Semitic attacks.
Like should I be moving immediately? Like like you're living in Tsarist Russia and they're about to put you in prison camps in Siberia. I mean, literally, like that
feels a little alarmist, but okay.
No, but I'm just giving you the range of views. That is absolutely alarmist, right?
Right.
And at the same time, for them, the fact that he came up as an activist, that he has been very vocal about the Palestinian cause, that he, until recently, I think he tried to tweak his answer on Colbert this week, but has said, several times that Israel, he doesn't believe has a right to exist. Now he says it has a right to exist, but he's nuanced the answer.
He's being haunted by his prior tweets and positions too.
Yeah, and that's something about Zohran here is that if you look through, it is a very robust history on Twitter. And so he is having to answer for that. Also, his various views just a few years ago during sort of the height of Black Lives Matter, talking about defunding the police and other positions that he took on Twitter he's trying to walk back rhetorically. You saw a bit of that with the Kamala Harris campaign in the fall, too, where she sort of was held to account for positions she took between 2017 and 2020, sort of peak moments there.
Right.
So I do think that in the general, over the course of the next 5 months, he does have to actually follow through. What I found interesting is his statement in his victory speech last night. Zohran made a point clearly regarding his views on the Palestinian issue and Israel, as in we may not agree on everything. I will be attempting to listen to everybody. And so you did see, a bit of that. It felt like an olive branch of sorts, but I will stand firm in my position. Now, I'm generally curious, Tara, when it comes to first, you mentioned there's no ranked choice in the fall, and that's what a lot of people have been asking about, which is like, what does this all mean? You mentioned Cuomo might decide to run here. And ultimately, that could be a situation where a split between Adams, Cuomo, and Slua, basically, that's Zohran's dream, right? Because ultimately, he has...
That's true, yeah.
He coasts then, because they split everything from the right through the center, and he takes the entire left there.
Right.
I am curious if Cuomo doesn't get out, what is the Eric Adams situation? Like, do people come back to him? The people who sort of made their bet with Cuomo, do they sort of now have to try to hold their nose again for Eric Adams here? Does he have a shot?
I don't know. He was on Fox News today saying that Zohran Mamdani is a snake oil salesman. And they were going through all of his policies saying, like, these aren't even possible. You can't raise taxes. That's the governor's job because he wants to raise taxes on the wealthiest. The free busing.
Right, because he's looking to spend a lot of money and give away a lot of free things.
Exactly.
He's got to pay for it somehow.
I'm just going to go through some of the policies that he's proposing, by the way. City-run grocery stores, healthcare.
By the way, city-run grocery stores.
Not universal healthcare. Universal childcare, excuse me. And what was that you were saying?
Yeah, I was going to say, what does he mean by city-owned grocery stores? Because, is that what I saw when I visited Havana, Cuba, where, the government owns stores?
I mean, yeah, they have that in North Korea, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see, there's no example of that in the U.S. that I know of.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I agree. Yeah, I don't think there is an example of that. So yeah, these are democratic socialist policies, and this is an interesting place, and it's a place that MAGA is loving right now. I'm just going to give you some of the tweets that I've seen.
Wait, by the way, did you see Trump just posted about Mamdani for the first time in the last half hour? Did you see
what did he say? Yes, please.
All right, let's read it to you guys. This is like catnip. By the way, right now the president is at NATO, and he's posted now twice, at least as of my reading. The first one from Donald Trump on Mamdani. It finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Dem primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible, all caps. His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC +3, dummies all backing him. And even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, This is a big moment in the history of our country. He then goes on to say, I have an idea for the Democrats to bring them out back into play. After years of being left out in the cold, including suffering one of the greatest losses in history, the 2024 presidential election, Democrats should nominate low IQ Jasmine Crockett for president. AOC plus 3 should be vice president. And added to that, cabinet should include future communist mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. There you have it.
Classic Trump.
Yes, communist lunatic is his first attempt to brand Mamdani here.
And that sounds about. I'm actually kind of disappointed. I thought he could have done better. Zany Zohran, yeah, I think he could have done better. But sure, that was interesting, and it is interesting though when I think about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and their statements. Very moderate statements that they've put out so far. They have said, congratulated him on a well-run campaign. That is very bland. I just think to myself, all of the Democratic leadership, pretty much everyone, is based out of New York. You've got Chuck Schumer, minority leader in the Senate. Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader in the House. And then you've got Kirsten Gillibrand. She is running the Democratic Senatorial Committee. They are the ones who recruit candidates to run in the Senate. And between the three of them, the power brokers in the Democratic Party, they couldn't recruit anyone better than Cuomo.
Yeah. I mean, they had an opportunity. They've known this race was coming. Eric Adams got indicted a year ago. Ultimately, I think it speaks to a larger issue here that Democratic voters have with their party, which is that they're so stuck with a certain generation of candidates. They can't think outside the box. And that's what I took away, by the way, from the statements here from Schumer and company, which is of what's going on out there. They, are very much not in line with what Zohran is selling here and what's happening to the party, but they feel they have to play nice and embrace it because ultimately they could be kicked out. I mean, there's several dozen races next year, Tara, in Congress primaries where there's much younger Democrats, progressive Democrats, going up against sitting members. I mean, the Democratic primary is going to be very interesting to watch. And I think some people tried to compare it to the Tea Party moment Republicans had in 2010. That came out of the sort of failures of George W. Bush. The party had a reset. It sort of set the table. Sarah Palin was
That's why I compared it to Trump again. Yeah, it started with the Tea Party, though. It was, we're not going to take it anymore.
Right. When the party loses a whole bunch of times, the party faithful rise up. And they're launching effectively an insurrection within the party. And you do see this, and you saw this, by the way, with the recent rallies AOC and Bernie have had, where you see, the last time I saw actual excitement on the Democratic side, you're seeing with these candidates who are on the far left end of the party. And so I'm genuinely curious, one of the things Zohran said last night was we're going to teach a lesson here. We're going to set an example for the rest of the Democratic Party, us Democratic socialists. And I'm curious as to, what your sense is about, to what extent that can be actual reality here. Or do we think Zohran this is sort of unique and there's not a larger lesson here for the Democratic Party?
I think it's interesting because at the same time you see, Zohran rising up in the right petri dish for him to rise up in New York City, right? This is where AOC was founded. This is a place that is extremely progressive, right? But in those districts that are swing districts, specifically, I mean, New York is the reason that Republicans won the House. That is the reason they have a very small majority, is partially because of New York and these swing district Republicans that they were able to win. If the Democrats end up primarying some of these people they offer up, more left-leaning options, and Republicans will hold on to their majority, their 4-seat majority, and that's what they're trying to do. I mean, you're already seeing MAGA leaders tying more moderate Democrats out in Long Island and upstate New York to Zohran Mamdani. I think the DCCC already did that in some of their, I'm looking right now, some of their graphics are showing NRCC, the National Republican Congressional Committee is tying Mamdani in pictures with 3 battleground House Democrats. And these are people that are outside of New York City, and they've already condemned Mamdani. And I think about, the Democrats $20 million how to get men back study, and how what they've gathered from all is that, like, we need tougher talkers, we need more moderate Democrats. And Andrew Cuomo sort of fits that bill, but like, you're never going to get there until you've gone through a primary and your base is angry and they're unhappy with you. And you have to think about where we are right now too. Republicans are about to pass the big, beautiful bill in a number of, probably next week, July 4th, week and a half so far. And you're not really hearing much from the Democrats. They're not even explaining really how much this is going to impact the people who are on the healthcare that we are all like, just our access to healthcare, the cost of insurance, prescription drugs, Medicare, Medicaid. They're not even really explaining the impact of this bill. And I think that really angers the base. And this is how they react. They're like, where are the fighters? That's what they want right now. And it definitely puts it makes it more difficult for them to take back the House in some of these swing districts, for sure, if they end up getting primaried out. But at the same time, like, the party sort of set itself up for this because they've let all of these these creatures of the swamp just stay there for so long. Like, how many members are ranking members have been in there forever in the Democratic Party, the party of like progress and young people, and there's backlash to it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We always talk about how old Congress is, but the Republican leader is much younger than the Democratic leaders. Going back years now, and of course, we just coming off the Joe Biden situation, and even the new revelations of the past few months from the various books there. And I think there's just, like, at this point, so little trust that the average Democratic voter has that we probably shouldn't be surprised by this result at all, and frankly, should be expecting more of this. Especially, this cycle, we're in an off cycle, right? So there's going to be the New Jersey but next year, especially in midterms and the primaries next spring, are going to be really interesting to watch. I think you bring up a good point, which is ultimately this is amazing for Republicans, right? That they get to like have this argument. They love, I hear from Republicans all the time, like the squad, like Joe Biden, is like the squad, do whatever they want.
It's their foil. New foil.
It's their foil. And so Zohran Mamdani, as the mayor of New York City, as a Democratic socialist, is a proud Democratic socialist,
right?
Is all they want to be able to hit Democrats over the head, being like, if you don't let us stay with Congress, they're going to put a bunch of socialists in here, and they're going to connect it because everything is nationalized.
And it's even darker. I mean, listen to some of the tweets that I pulled up. Charlie Kirk, head of Turning Points USA, grassroots. 24 years ago, a group of Muslims killed 2,700 people on 9/11. Now a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. New York City will be destroyed. Muslims will start committing jihad all over New York. I mean, Laura Loomer, it's just Donald Trump Jr. New York City has fallen, retweeting someone who said endured 9/11 instead of voting for it. I mean, it's dark too. It's racially tinged. They're going to use him as a foil in all the worst ways.
Yeah, and by the way, they're gonna talk about him all the time. It'll probably benefit him in New York to a certain extent, because
right.
I think as far as Republicans are concerned, they would love for Zohran Mamdani to be the next mayor of New York.
Yeah, he's the new boogeyman. Yeah, he's their new boogeyman.
And so the president will be on the regular messaging, putting on his platform things about Zohran, because as far as he's concerned, it's great, and they have to defy, sort of the traditional first midterm of a president experience where you typically lose seats in the House and Senate. And so as far as they're concerned, they're going to try to put everything that they can and elevate him. But I am curious, one of the things that he, it's been compared to, like, Bill de Blasio was very progressive, right?
Yeah, he was.
I'm curious, and you covered him in City Hall. What are the differences here between Zohran and de Blasio? That's one of the questions I've been getting from New Yorkers who are like, is this going to be that much different?
That's a good question, actually. I mean, de Blasio still had the real estate community in his pocket, the African-American community. I don't know.
Right. By the way, the one racial group that went very much for Cuomo was Black voters.
Yeah.
And Mamdani won every other group.
It's a good question, because I remember when I was at the New York Post, one of my big scoops was I broke a story about how Bill de Blasio couldn't get his security clearance to read classified documents when he was mayor because he had spent too much time partying with the Sandinistas. So, like, this was the regular hit on him, was that he was a secret socialist the whole time. But it's really, I don't know that he really, I guess he did do a rent freeze at one point.
He did several times. Actually, he did it in 3 different years.
You're right. Yeah, he did. To be fair, I only covered de Blasio for, I think, less than a year because I moved to Europe.
Yeah, he did, like, I think 2011, and then there was, like, or 2015 and 2016, definitely. No, 2015, 2016, and 2020, he had 3 different rent freezes.
I left in 2014. So, so thank you for staying on top of that. And once I moved to Brussels, I was not as tied in. But this is, it was the easy hit on de Blasio, and it made sense. But this feels a little different, right? I mean, I don't think that de Blasio was proposing, free busing at the time. He wasn't proposing, Zohran is not proposing defund the police, but at one time he did.
Well, by the way, I will note this. I think he's definitely selling it differently, but he is calling for cuts to certain programs within the NYPD. He just doesn't want to call it defund the police.
Right.
Grocery and he's also calling for the creation of, like, a community policing organization. And then when you call 911, you might not necessarily, you might get a counselor instead of
social
the police
worker.
Immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something I think it's important to talk about, which is reality checking some of these promises. How much power, one of the questions I got last night there is, how much power does the New York City mayor have, and how much ultimately falls on the governor? And interestingly, core to what he's been saying, free buses for everyone, that's going to cost about $600 million, apparently, a variety of other things. To pay for it, he wants to increase taxes on the wealthy in New York and on corporations in New York. And we should note that ultimately, when it comes to taxes, that falls on Albany, that falls on the state, and Kathy Hochul, who's governor, and then there's a race next year, and if it's Richie Torres or at least Stefanik, whoever gets in there, they have no interest in raising taxes right now. So that's really going to crimp, a bit of the core of his agenda. The rent thing he can do on his own, the tax thing, that requires state support.
Yeah, I've heard that there's a lot of fear first of all, Elise Stefanik is taking a victory lap right now because there's a lot of feeling that suburban voters are going to backlash against Hochul over this. And, the people I've spoken to who have worked in City Hall and government for a really long time is like, it's not even so much of the ideology that they're worried about. It's just that he hasn't done anything really. He's 33 and they're worried about the competence. Like, this is not an easy organization to run.
Yeah, he was like, when you were covering City Hall, he was like in high school. And he was an up-and-coming rapper.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, he is 4 years younger than me. Well, no. Yeah, he would have been just coming out of college, I think.
Yeah, just coming out of college, aspiring rapper.
I was 25, so he was 21.
He wasn't a citizen yet. He doesn't become a citizen until 2018. He has just founded his College of Students for Justice and Palestine chapter. Okay. Again, why the Jewish community is a little, too very concerned about what that means. Sort of like you compared it to the Trump primary. I think to me there were also parallels to the 2008 Democratic primary. There were elements here of Hillary versus Barack. 2008, it was Hillary's turn. It was not Barack's turn. He was too young. He had a reputation in the Illinois State Senate of voting abstain on things, not to take stances on things. He had become a U.S. senator for like 3 seconds before he decided to run for president. He was eloquent. He was innovative digitally, and using new platforms to reach younger people.
He was energizing. It was grassroots.
A generational argument.
Yeah. Old
and Hillary's like, I'm a Clinton and I get stuff done. And Cuomo's like, I'm a Cuomo and I get stuff done. So there were definitely, I think, interesting parallels.
And there was the Clinton stink in the same way that there's the Cuomo stink.
Yeah.
People underestimate the stink that one can only get from many years of public service. And
speaking of which, they're very close. Andrew Cuomo served, he's been in this business long enough to have served in the cabinet.
And Bill Clinton endorsed him in this race. Did not help, clearly.
No, Bill Clinton's endorsement hasn't meant much for a while.
It hasn't meant shit in a long time.
The only thing we've been missing in New York is like Bruce Springsteen didn't perform for Cuomo, right? Like,
totally.
He was following the playbook of all these losing Democratic campaigns.
Can I give one piece of advice to the Democrats? Stop using your establishment players on repeat. No one wants them.
No.
Nobody wants the leftovers. Make something new. Make something new.
There's an authenticity thing, right? And you see it across the spectrum.
They're just old school politicians. They only know how to do it the old school way.
Like their views are completely different, but there's a similarity between Donald Trump and AOC and Zohran Mamdani and Bernie Sanders and a lot of these people who have very different viewpoints. But ultimately, it's one of the reasons why AOC's district in 2024 had a surge of Trump voters, and she sought clarity on that. And she asked her constituents on Instagram Live, like, how did you guys vote for Trump and me on the same ballot? And time again, it was like, you guys say what you believe. You guys don't, spin us. And there is an appeal there, even if the views, these are completely different. And there's this blow it up philosophy, right?
They're ranked as more honest for some reason, even when they're lying. They're perceived as being more honest.
Sherry's writing here, the younger generation feels the fake.
Yeah, we just love that we love that authenticity. That's why Mo and I are not in fancy TV studios right now. We're in our houses broadcasting to you guys.
Yeah, no, we're
even though we did come from TV studios, right? Yeah, we came from TV studios, and now here we are.
I'm curious, is there a scenario where Zohran is not the next mayor of New York City, do you think?
I don't know how that happens. Like you said, if they split the conservative vote, I don't think Curtis is a factor.
Do you think there are conference calls happening right now between Mike Bloomberg and various financial, hedge funders and Bill? Are they trying to recruit?
Are you asking me if the lizards are all together right now in their clubs talking about how to do this?
Are the conspiracy theories true right now? Are there calls happening being like, how do we get Sliwa out?
You know who they're calling right now? They're calling Chuck Schumer right now. They're bitching him out.
Yelling at Chuck? How is this Chuck's fault?
Because he's the leader of the party. Who else?
You should have recruited somebody else.
Yeah, who is the leader of the party? Who is that guy from, I don't even remember his name, the head of the DNC. That's how
Martin.
How ineffectual he's been.
Martin.
They're not calling Ken Martin, they're calling Chuck Schumer. That's who they're calling. They're like, Chuck, how did this happen?
And he said, because Andrew called me and we wanted to give him another shot.
Right. That is who they are. Who else are they going to bitch to? That is it. I wonder if Obama's on the line.
Right. But do they have another play? Do they have any other plays? Or is it basically let's all just suck it up and befriend Eric Adams and hope that we can get Eric Adams to 37%?
I don't know.
I'm waiting on polls. I'm really curious.
That means they have to tell Cuomo not to run. They have to basically tell Cuomo he can't run.
Oh, you think he's still thinking about it? You think he's actually thinking about it?
Yeah. Guy's YOLO. He's just laying low for a little bit. I'm sure he's thinking about it.
So the 4-way, so Sliwa gets 22%. I think that's Mamdani's dream. I think the fewer people in the race, the chance he still has.
Yeah. Listen, I've never been good at the math part of this, to be honest with you. But
I got into journalism because I was told there was no math.
Yeah, that's pretty much yes. That I've never been a data nerd. That's just not who I've been. But I'm trusting you on that one.
Yeah. Well, no. So that's what I'm wondering is beyond so for the first goal goes to Chuck being you screwed this up, but I'm curious. They have 4.5 months.
How do we fix this? Yeah. How do we fix this?
It's some of the richest people on earth have a very specific interest in preventing Zohran from living in Gracie Mansion.
And they're not
4.5 months.
They always say they will. They're not moving in Jersey. Maybe that again.
No, they're going to pay. They're going to and as I mentioned, the one thing that will likely not happen is the tax increase because that has to go through.
But there might be, the municipal services that they like. There might be long lines. There'll be other things. There'll be, like you said, the threat that Trump is going to railroad Mamdani, start doing raids in New York City for the show of it all. Like whatever we saw in California with Trump and his war against Gavin Newsom,
LA,
he's going to
LA times 10.
He's going to turn it up against Mamdani because he's an even better foil. Whereas like Gavin is considered, or is at least posing as a more moderate Democrat as he, tries to take, I don't know, run in 2028.
So Mamdani enters the mayor's mansion, and so 2020 terms is going to just be full on war. The National Guard will be deployed to Manhattan, right?
Yeah. Great. Cool.
Get ready, folks.
On that note, Moshe, I think we should probably wrap this one up. Let everyone kind of let it linger. Thanks for everyone who joined in and had thoughts and questions, and I appreciate all of your perspectives. A lot of people really excited about this win, and we don't want to take away from that. And a lot of people fearful, and that is the beauty of democracy, is that everybody gets a chance to win and have their own opinions, and everybody gets a chance to try to rig the system and lose.
and I'll say this is something to keep in mind, because a lot of people are asking, like, what would Mamdani do about this? What would Mamdani do about that?
Yeah.
This is the thing. He ran the primary. He was getting his core constituency. What do you do to general? You try to be more centrist. You try to be more appealing.
Exactly.
So it'll be very interesting to see what positions he drops or moderates now over the course of the next 5 months. And then there's the whole governing thing, which is once he gets in, if he gets in, right? He's got a city council. He's got Albany. He's a 33-year, he'll be 34 assemblyman who's never managed anything this large, like a $120 billion budget. And what would
But can I tell you one thing? He won't be in the club like Eric Adams. Because I do remember I was one of the first reporters to be out at night at Zero Bond. I was at Politico, and I was like, is that Eric Adams in the club? And it was before he even started, and I started writing about it. I was like, what? And then I'd keep hearing back, Eric's in the club, Eric's in the club. And I'm like, what is going on here? You are the mayor. And he's like, I'm the night mayor. It's like, what?
He's still doing that. There are pictures from him this weekend. While we were bombing Iran, he was at a hookah bar.
I was on the couch working and doing a video, and sorry, Adams was out at a hookah bar. Love it.
Yeah.
I think Mamdani's going to actually have to overcompensate for his youth a bit and show some seriousness. I'm hopeful that
Right, he's got to keep Jessica Tisch probably in as NYPD commissioner. I mean, that's why Watch, folks, is making a lot of promises, saying a lot of things, and he's going to get a big reality check in the general. He's going to reality check as mayor. And so to those freaking out right now, trying to sell their condos in Tribeca.
Fire sale.
If you're, how much is it?
Honestly, I bet you that Hochul is calling and being like, don't fuck with me or you will have zero budget. I will fuck. Because that's the war. I remember this from covering but like the budget war at the New York Post between the governor and the mayor. Governor decides what the budget is for the mayor, and she holds the purse string. So, and if it's a Republican, like, damn, New York's,
Well, and that's the thing is, remember, Hochul is going to be in a potential fight for her life to be reelected, potentially if Richie Torres makes his decision, and she's going to have to stand strong against Mamdani if she wants to appeal, especially she's an upstater, to the rest of the state, because there's New York City, there's the rest of the state, and we should mention New York is not the New York of 20 years ago. Lee Zeldin 4 years ago for governor got within a few points of her, and you saw Donald Trump make major inroads and had the best result as a Republican in decades here. So New York is becoming gradually more, especially with Long Island and what's happening upstate, and what you're seeing in the city. Mamdani is going to be, facing a lot of challenges, including from people within his own party.
You know what? I was just thinking about it when you said Richie Torres, and I forgot that he's looking at governor, and he was supposed to come on my show today, and he canceled.
He's been very quiet. He's been very quiet.
Suspicious.
We should mention Richie Torres, the congressman from the Bronx, very pro-Israel, very against what Mamdani is selling. You know who was the first person to endorse Andrew Cuomo? Richie Torres, I think, did it within like 3 seconds. Endorsed him. They were super close. His biggest, I think his largest, when I look at his numbers, I think AIPAC is up there as his probably his top
donors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Huge thing. Ultimately, the calculation is, Jewish voters statewide figuring out next year if it's like a Richie Torres versus Elise Stefanik race. It's going to be super interesting. So New York has a lot of interesting politics at play here. And so,
Richie, I'm getting you, though. You're coming on next week, okay? We're going to get the statement from you, but I'm not going to have the first one. That's probably what, he's probably thinking about the right way to put it out there.
Yeah,
people are waiting on what he's going to say.
Has he tweeted? It's almost been 24 hours. I haven't seen. I was checking his feed last night, and I did not see what, because I didn't even look at his district and how well Zohran did in his district. Did Zohran?
Hi, Richie. We're looking. Let's see.
No, Richie.
Nothing.
Richie's talking about AI and Mitch McConnell on his Twitter feed right now.
That a president would glorify the Confederacy in 2025 is sad. Okay. Yeah, no, nothing yet.
No, he's making a calculation right now. By the way, what the
calculation was, Tara Palmeri is going to have a lot of questions and skipped our 3 p.m. pod.
She's going to get me in trouble. It's what you do, Tara.
Me?
Sometimes by asking very simple questions. Anyway, this has been a pleasure. We will put this out on our podcast feed. You'll put this out on your podcast feed.
Sure.
And I look forward to more now that we're in the Substack family, Substack cousins.
Yeah. Well, we are Substack cousins. All right.
Yes.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for watching the Tara Palmeri Show. I want to thank my producer, Eric Aminate, my booker, Jane Fusco, my team of researchers and social media. That's Abby Baker, Luke Radel, and Sarah Carney. I'll be back again this week, but you can always find my reporting by going to tarapalmeri.com. That's TARAPALMERI.com, and signing up for my newsletter, The Red Letter, where you will get my exclusive reporting straight to your inbox. See you again soon.